The world is divided into four categories of countries: Japan, Argentina, developed, and underdeveloped. Even after the phrase was allegedly invented in the 1970s by Nobel Prize-winning economist Simon Kuznets, Argentina continues to be notable for having an exceptionally high annual inflation rate, which is right now at an astounding 138%. With 46.9 million people living in 23 provinces as of January 2023 and a GDP of $632.24 billion in 2022, Argentina has the third largest economy in Latin America. With around 92% of the people living in urban areas, it is regarded as one of the globe's most urbanized countries. The agricultural sector, which produces the majority of the central bank's reserves, is negatively impacted by bad weather conditions, which makes the country's already difficult economic picture even more dire. The economy had a recession due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The GDP of the nation increased positively in 2021 by around 10%, and in 2022 by almost 5%. But other metrics offer a more comprehensive picture of the difficult economic climate. The extreme drought has made things worse economically and exacerbated already existing macro imbalances. In August 2023, annual inflation spiked to 124%, impacting vulnerable population groups. National figures from September 2023 show that 40.1% of people live in poverty and 9.1% in extreme poverty. What an unmitigated disaster. Global trade boomed, which underpinned the nation's vast prosperity. Preceding World War I, Argentina fully benefited from an extraordinary period of globalization and free trade, particularly in the export of cattle. The nation's plethora of resources made it possible for it to export its goods to other countries and enjoy affluence. Yet, this opportunity quickly gave way to dependence, placing the nation's fortunes at the whim of nations. Argentina's protracted downfall started when the period of free commerce and economic liberalism was destroyed by conflict and recession. A country as dependent on exports as Argentina was doomed by the wartime tariffs and blockades. Although ranking among the richest in the world before the conflict, it wasn't an industrializing modern power like others it outperformed in terms of wealth. This indicated that the external shock of the new war-torn era struck it particularly hard. Argentina was not the only country to experience this. Most economies worldwide had catastrophic declines between 1914 and 1945. But Argentina was largely ignored due to the period of economic reconstruction that followed for a large portion of the rest of the world. Seems like Argentina was left by the wayside. It made an attempt at liberalization in the 1970s, but this failed to stop another downturn because there was no industry that could meaningfully compete with rivals abroad. Some industries had flourished, but they were incredibly inefficient and isolated from the global market. After growing throughout the protectionist era, manufacturing is now beginning a protracted phase of decline. The actual per capita income of Argentinians fell by more than 20% between the 1970s and the 1990s. Following 100 years of downturn, the Argentine economy entered the 21st century with an impending financial crisis, and the people's prosperity was once again negatively impacted by misguided economic policies. The Argentinian government chose to peg its currency to the US dollar in the next decade as a result of a significant increase in public debt and a period of high inflation in the 1980s. The goal of this was to lower inflation and enable imports to become more affordable due to currency appreciation. Such a long road ahead, no? If you like this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Although rising prices are the most well-known concern affecting Argentina's economy, there are many other problems that decision makers must deal with. For the first time in 30 years, Consumer Price Index (CPI) year-over-year inflation surpassed 100% in February 2023. Since then, the rate has been higher than that, progressively increasing to reach 138% in September 2023. As reported by the National Institute of Statistics and Censuses, they must be living on the breadline now, right? Argentina, the world's largest consumer of red meat, has seen a sharp increase in inflation due in large part to beef and other food items. According to official statistics, the cost of beef chops increased by 72% in Buenos Aires, the country's largest metropolis, during the 12-month period ending in June 2022. In response, the government launched price control initiatives and, towards the end of the previous year, mandated that producers and merchants freeze the prices of thousands of items, such as food, beverages, and personal products for personal hygiene. In addition, the recent appreciation of the Argentinian Peso has been both a cause and a manifestation of the nation's economic problems. The Central Bank of Argentina is in charge of the currency. In August, after the far-right, ultra-conservative Milei won a crucial primary vote, officials depreciated it by 18% in a single day to 350 pesos for every dollar. Milei has promised to abandon the peso in favor of the greenback. However, many have resorted to utilizing a freely floating black market currency called locally as the dollar blue, which sells at approximately 600 pesos per dollar instead of using the official exchange rate. Numerous exchange rates have weakened the government and increased the likelihood that hyperinflation will become permanent. Because there is little faith in the peso, the Argentine economy is already heavily dollarized, and complete dollarization doesn't seem like a big deal. Officials would no longer have any discretion because of their track record of failure. In theory, dollarization calls for the government to take a financial hit and make sure that monetary financing is no longer given. Theoretically, inflation should drop significantly and steadily, with the credibility of the nation dependent on the US monetary policy. Such dollarization costs an arm and a leg. However, Argentina's experience in the late 1990s and early 2000s serves as a stark warning. Significant progress was made in the 1990s under the convertibility plan to stop hyperinflation and restart growth, but debt and budget deficits were not controlled during the course of the decade. Argentina lost its ability to compete internationally, particularly in the light of the crises in Mexico, Asia, and Brazil in 1999, as well as the strong dollar and falling prices of commodities. The current account deficit and unemployment both skyrocketed as growth fell. In fact, Argentina recorded a current account deficit of 0.70% of the gross domestic product in 2022. Argentina lost accessibility to markets and was unable to pay its foreign deficits. Due to significant foreign liabilities denominated in dollars, investors liquidated Argentine paper, causing unsustainable interest rate increases, strict capital controls, and the failure of the convertibility plan amidst significant economic, social, and political upheaval. Argentina is on a sticky wicket. Due to a spike in inflation that has gotten worse recently, Argentina's urban poverty rate increased to 40.1% in the first half of 2023, its worst level in 3 years. Actually, the owners of a soup kitchen in a locum area of the capital city of Argentina don't need statistics to confirm what they have been witnessing in an economy plagued by remarkably high inflation rates recently. Global events like the COVID-19 pandemic have exacerbated Argentina's poverty. At the height of the COVID-19 induced shutdown at the end of June 2020, the poverty rate reached 47%. The loss of 3.5 million employees during the epidemic contributed to the high percentage of poverty. The poverty line in 2020 corresponded to a monthly income of just under 15,000 pesos, or $193. In early 2022, the unemployment rate fell to 7%, although 28% of working-age Argentinians are still considered impoverished. According to the study, earnings lost 20% of their purchasing power between 2018 and 2020 as a result of inflation and a combination of currency devaluation. The poverty rate rose in response to the pandemic's boost in unemployment, but it didn't decline when unemployment subsided. It's like a thorn in their side. Global events such as wars and pandemics have an impact on the economy. However, Argentina's delicate economy is susceptible to abrupt shifts. The rise of poverty is also seen in shifts in livable behaviors and consumption. For instance, according to People's Dispatch, Argentinians consumed 47.8 kilograms of beef per person in 2021, the least since the 1920s. Argentina's poverty is evolving due to shifts in unemployment and a rise in the working poor population. Now, you must be wondering if there is a way out for Argentina. Yes, but it's a long road ahead and there are quick fixes. With measures akin to those used in the past, Milei might be able to bring about the end of the decadence, as he phrased it in his victory address. If Argentina's issues were limited to large deficits and debt, but hyperinflation is a new problem for Argentina. Hyperinflation is not your typical inflationary issue. It is an indication of a total collapse of confidence in the organizations in charge of maintaining the value of the currency. Actually, data suggests that Argentina is among the countries with a high percentage of the population, 22%, claiming that they don't trust their government. Stated differently, Milei proposed dollarization because hyperinflation destroys confidence in a nation's currency. But the course he suggests is neither desirable nor feasible. Argentina's capability to implement its own monetary and exchange rate policies is taken away by dollarization, which is a serious disadvantage for an emerging market economy that is vulnerable to outside shocks. Argentina now has more dollar-denominated liabilities than dollar-denominated assets. It has a negative net reserve position because it owes foreigners more dollars than it has ever had. It is like a yoke around Argentina's neck, a mix of significant institutional, monetary, and fiscal reforms like those implemented by Brazil in 1994 with its Real Plan, which put an end to more than 20 years of hyperinflation, are the only practical solutions to Argentina's issues. Brazil changed its currency 7 times, failing the first 6 times. Argentina made at least 2 unsuccessful attempts to take this route in the 1980s. It must attempt again, but with institutional changes this time around to foster confidence in the new currency. Otherwise, the wheels will continue to fall off. Such reforms would need new legislation that would prohibit the central bank from printing money to cover fiscal deficits, as well as significant fiscal adjustments, which the incoming government has promised to carry out. Under such a strategy, Argentina's autonomy over questions of money and exchange rates would not have to be given up in favour of a dollarization program. A strategy of this size requires a great deal of political coordination and alignment of different interests, not the least of which is the support of indebted provincial governments that have budgetary autonomy, undermining the ability of the federal government to oversee overall fiscal policy. In spite of his populist appeal, Milei is faced with difficult decisions and limited options due to the legacy of disasters. Although dollarization seems unlikely, the political system is not yet ready to implement the costly actions needed to stabilize inflation. The upcoming months will be both difficult and fascinating in the same manner. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons to receive more content. See you in the next video.